Hey y'all, Austin here with Our World Media. Welcome back to another book review, guys. If you saw my weekly update, I did make the announcement that I was going to be combining two books into one review. I thought about it, and I think that's the best option just because it's been a while since I've read book two, but also it's hard to do a spoiler-free video and have, it be longer than 2, maybe 3 minutes without talking about stuff that would spoil the books. Even though it's the second and third book into the series, I still want this channel to be spoiler free if at all possible. So maybe this will end up being a 4 or 5 minute long video. But I am talking about book number 2 in the Wheel of Time series, that is The Great Hunt, as well as book number 3, that is The Dragon Reborn. I do apologize for the glare, guys. Kind of getting into this, giving my overall thoughts so far on the series. I am enjoying it. I'll get that out of the get-go and out of the gate, just say that. But yeah, kind of getting into, what are book number 2 and book number 3 about, guys? Well, book number 2 obviously is a continuation of book number 1. We see, our main characters from book 1 just, not that long after book 1 takes place. They're all kind of going on their own little journeys and where they're heading and whatnot. As far as that goes, what I will say is, after reading book 1, I had some high hopes for book 2, and book 2 did not let me down. There were some subject matters that were talked about and touched on in book 2 that kind of threw me for a loop. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I did not expect there to be the ideas and the subjects that Mr. Jordan talks about. There's a theme of betrayal, and just the atmosphere is anybody and everybody could be a follower or the Dark One. And that's kind of the thing is, the series is going on, I'm noticing, is are they a follower? Are they not a follower? We're introduced to some characters in book 2 that I really didn't expect. There's some ideas of like I don't know the best way to describe it. I don't say like an alternate reality, but if you've read Malazan, they talk about that thing where they can go, I forget what it is, where essentially, I'm drawing a blank, like the Forbidden Lands or something like that. I do apologize. I'm probably butchering this in all honesty, but just the ideas that Mr. Jordan has taken. I can see a couple other books that I've read. I have not read a whole lot of fantasy books, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not sure if Mr. Jordan borrowed these ideas from somewhere else, but I can see a couple books that I've read have taken and paid homage to a couple of the things that he's talked about. What I will mention is the idea of just, the book is called The Great Hunt, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And the way that Mr. Jordan weaves different stories for these characters and separates them and then brings them back together just seems to be getting better and better as the series goes on. I'm not going to lie. Again, I really enjoyed book 2. And again, that's about as much as I can say about book 2 because, I'm not going to lie, I don't remember a whole lot that wouldn't be spoilers. Non-spoiler, I guess I should say. But that leads us to book number 3, The Dragon Reborn. What I will say about this, book 3 picks up quite a bit quicker than book 1 and book 2. Not that that's bad that book 1 and book 2 were slow. Book 1, it felt like kind of starting in the Shire and Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and whatnot. Book 2, kind of felt like the Two Towers as far as, okay, they're on this journey, we're going somewhere. Book 3, kicks off with a little bit of a surprise. Our characters, again, I'm not trying to spoil anything, some of our characters are separated, they're not all together and whatnot. And yeah, what I will say, and it kind of ties into book 2, I'm not one for romantic stuff in books or anything like that, but Mr. Jordan has taken that theme and has used it on a few different characters, and it's kind of got me hooked. I'm not gonna lie, I am very, very much looking forward to see what happens and whatnot. And book 3 also, guys, we see kind of the repercussions of what book 2 did to some of our characters. I'm still rearing about what happened in book 1 to one of my favorite characters and whatnot. So as the series goes on, I'm starting to realize not everybody is who they seem to be, and I don't think that it's anything where it's going to be like nepotism where bad stuff's obviously going to happen, but I'm starting to get the feeling that I don't need to grow attached to some characters, if you will. But again, guys, like I said, I really enjoyed book three. He just, the way he writes these books, they're slower kind of paced, and then as the story goes on, it just gets harder and harder to stop reading the book. It really does. I will say as well, having the physical book versus just reading on my Kindle, the map definitely helped. Having a color map helped, and then having the glossary in the back. Let me pull this up here real quick. I'm pretty sure there was a glossary. No, I guess not. I guess I was wrong. I just, again, guys, I really, really enjoyed having it and reading it in physical format. And I know I'm kind of going away from the story a little bit, but again, it's a little hard to talk about these books without spoiling anything. But again, I really, really enjoyed book three quite a bit. The action in this series, I think Mr. Jordan's gotten better as his writing has gone on, as far as just the action scenes and whatnot, and just the characters themselves. I really enjoyed that, we got introduced obviously to more characters in book two, and book three took who we follow and changed it up. And I'm not gonna lie, I very, very much enjoyed it. There was a part in book two that played a factor, but it wasn't a main overall arc, I thought, and it's turned out to be quite big as the series has gone on into book three, especially. So I found myself with some characters and I've enjoyed all the characters, but a few characters who, I wasn't too keen on. I'm not gonna lie, that they have a very, very prominent part in book three, and I really enjoyed it. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I don't know what Mr. Jordan's doing, but he's changing things up just a little bit, enough to keep me very, very interested, starting to like these characters more, and he's starting to weave little stories and relationships between all these different characters and whatnot, and it's very, very interesting. I'm very, very much enjoying it. I am developing, I don't want to say an infatuation, but just a certain amount of care for these characters. Especially, I think that's going to be an important thing, because it's like a 14 or 15 book series. So you got to grow attached to these characters at some point if you're going to try to read that many books. And it started in book two, especially towards the end, and book three picked it up. So I'm very, very much looking forward to this series, and as it continues growing more and more attached to these characters, and hoping and crossing my fingers that all the characters will stick around, but we'll see. You never know. But again, guys, like I said, that is going to be my review of book two and book three. I'm sorry it's not super, super informative. Again, it's a little hard to talk about these without spoiling anything, and again, I don't want to do that. But again, guys, I do appreciate everybody that stopped by and watched this video. Y'all have a good one.